Hello, and welcome to the Comedy Wine List podcast, where we get to know comedians and wine one glass at a time. It's me, Steph, wine industry qualified nerd and comedian. Today's comedian is Stella Graham with a well-known red wine. It's Bordeaux from France. This one in particular is from Saint Émilion, which is on the right bank. We filmed and recorded today's episode at Streatham Winehouse in South London on a Saturday and had lots of wonderful chats and fun afterwards. Stella is a comedian who's done shows at Edinburgh and performs across the country and London. She's also a writer, actor, podcaster, MC and voiceover artist. With the flexibility to blend all of those skills together, just like in Bordeaux you have beautifully blended red wines. I hope you get a sense of what a Bordeaux style from Saint Émilion could taste like through this chat with Stella Graham. Tell me, when was the last time we saw each other then? Was it pre-corona? It must have been.
I feel like... I remember walking with you from Mercato Metropolitano.
Yeah. So that was like in between lockdowns then?
Elephant and Castle, yeah. And then maybe it was likely one of Marco's gigs.
Yeah, B Comedy.
Yeah.
Shout out to B Comedy.
Yeah.
B Comedy UK.
Everyone's favourite Italian.
So
UK.
run by Italian guys, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Really fun-loving. Lots of like Italian in the audience as well.
Yeah.
They know their market.
Yeah.
Often out of like Italian deli shops, but also they're branching out now to pizza
places. Yeah. From Italian delis to pizza places.
We're laughing because it sounds ridiculous, but the nights are some of the most lovely, fun-loving. The vibe is set right. I think what B Comedy does really well is it actually gets audience, like actual audience.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of like the rest of the open mic, for example, it's non-existent. It's like
no, they hustle. They get it out there. They get good acts. They put a lot of effort into the promotion and drawing in audiences. And yeah, they're always good nights. I think.
I love it. Have you done any recently?
I'm doing one tomorrow.
Ooh, which one?
Taco.
Okay, cool. Lovely. Yeah.
Full Halloween special. So there'll be like an aperitivo first. So he'll say to me, come down at 5:30 and eat all you can before people start turning up. And then
such a good payment. Yeah.
There'll be food and drinks, and then we get into the funny.
Oh my god, I love it.
Sunday night special.
Speaking of aperitivos and getting generally tipsy, wine and comedy, right?
There's wine and podcasts, and I was like, you had me at wine, Steph. You know, why would I just want to hang out on a Saturday and drink wine?
You were like one of the quickest responses I've had to so I'm doing this thing. It's a weird podcast where I have a drink with a comic. I don't think I fully explained it to you, where I basically pair your comedic voice with a wine.
Love it.
Okay. So I'll break this down for you. The reason you're a red wine and not a white wine, for example, is the topics that you choose.
Oh,
okay. So they're a little bit less contentious, but you'll say stuff like resting bitch face. There's like sexual stuff. There's like fart jokes and stuff.
Oh,
there's
I'm very highbrow. Yeah.
You are, yeah. Talk to me through the kinds of topics that you choose. Also, you've got a whole Edinburgh show recently.
Yes.
What sort of topics do you cover in your show Undercurrent?
Undercurrent, okay. Yeah. So that is the show that was due for Edinburgh 2020, which of course did not happen.
Yeah.
So it was morphing from what it started as in February 2020, which I did at the Leicester Comedy Festival. Some of it was about me and the way I behave, ways in which I take after my mother.
Oh, okay.
And it didn't get as much airtime as I hoped it would in order for the 2020. So during that gap of time where we didn't get to gig very much, it kind of morphed quite a lot. And there's still some stuff in there about the bitch face, about ways in which I try and be a better person and try and be more friendly, but I can't. And how like my fella is a much nicer person than I am. And even when I try and do it, the evil is within. And just trying to sort of navigate that.
I think it's the evil that this red wine is like expressing. It's this like
yeah,
annoyance at stuff that comes out really well in your comedy.
Yeah, there's a significant amount of rage. I've got a section where I rally against the be kind thing that's going on at the minute, and it's a lot of fun. And then there's just some silly stuff in there. The farting bit was in the Edinburgh show just because it's solid, and I think it's a funny thing to say about farts, isn't it? But also I didn't get time to really I didn't get time to really like work some of the new stuff I wanted to do, and I didn't want to be to the Edinburgh crowd that I had. Hey, let me just work through some stuff. I'm like, you know what? Let's end on a high. Let's do some.
The bankers, the solid farts.
Yeah, you know, there's a few silly bits in there that are fun to perform. So I wanted, more than anything, I wanted to try and get some of the new stuff out. There's some of it about my upbringing, and I feel like I'm just going to end up giving away so much of what the show is. Yeah. But yeah, I think a lot of it is based around what molds you into who you are. And undercurrent was really that, like what's on the surface and what's underneath. Very deep, Steph. Very deep.
That's my kind of, that's the comedy I love listening to, because I'm a little bit like, you know, this is all well and good. We're having a little glass of wine, but we'll probably talk about like psychologically what's wrong with us at some point. You know, like awesome. I'm always like trying to dig deeper for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's just, it's tasty.
So the plan is you get people drunk in order to get them to unravel. Yeah. Very cool.
And I'm like, I know all your secrets, tee hee hee. Give me a spot at your next comedy show. No, I'm joking.
I would anyway. You wouldn't even need to
you could have told me that before I did this whole freaking reveal.
Just a glass of wine alone would have done.
So you mentioned in you chatting about undercurrent that there are really, really silly bits, but then there's also this undercurrent of strong emotion. The way I formulate what kind of wine you'll be is a light-bodied wine is a very kind of like silly, light-hearted comic. A medium-bodied wine is someone where we're laughing at their struggles, and a full-bodied wine is someone where we're laughing at their emotion. But with you, we're laughing at kind of the two polar extremes. So you've ended up in the middle under this Bordeaux. It's a Bordeaux from France. Okay. Because in series 2, now I'm chatting directly at camera. It's really weird how this works. It feels like there's a third person in the room.
Well, that's the audience. Hey.
Hi. So series 2 is just French wines. So you are my Bordeaux.
Okay.
Just, you know, no pressure. It's quite a well-known region. Have you ever had a Bordeaux before?
I think I have, yeah. This will be interesting because the first few times I tried French wines, I didn't like them.
Yes. Unpack that for me, because a lot of people feel that way.
I think it was probably like one of the first reds I had. And I don't doubt it was a cheap bottle of something from an off license that someone turned up to a party with. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll try it. And it was just foul. Yeah. But then probably when I was younger, my taste buds would have been for more sweet stuff. I'm an old hag now, Steph. So, you know, it's all falling apart. I'm probably going to really like it now.
No, we've matured and our taste buds have developed.
Like a fine wine.
Like a fine wine, yeah. If you could squeeze as many grape puns into this as possible, that'd be great.
I'll do my best.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Bordeaux, just because, you know, there might be some people that are actually up for listening to the wine aspect.
Oh, yeah, they'll be like, can you quit banging on about the comedy and tell us about the grape? Yeah.
Exactly. So Bordeaux is a region in France. It's actually the biggest wine growing region in the whole of France, which is massive because they have so many different regions. There's the left bank and the right bank in Bordeaux, and they produce very different types of wines. Firstly, 90% of all Bordeaux wines are red. Okay. 10% is rosé and sweet wines, which we're not talking about today because, it's fine. Red wine, left bank and right bank. You are a right bank Bordeaux. Why they're called that is because essentially there's an estuary, the Gironde estuary, and then the river coming off of that estuary is called the Dordogne. Then right of that river is the right bank, which is where this wine is from. Then left of that river is the left bank, which is, I'll cover it very briefly, wines that are more Cabernet Sauvignon led. So way more structured, way more like... you've got to have a lot of sun to ripen that kind of wine. So sometimes it's quite difficult to make wine out of, like dense. So a much angrier kind of comic would be a left style. Although you've got some evil in you. There's a lot of silliness to it. So you're my medium-bodied right bank style from Saint Émilion, which is quite a well-known place, which is more Merlot-led. I'm sure you've had a Merlot before.
Yes.
I'm assuming. So really soft tannins, like smooth, deliciously fruity. I'm going to expect some like red fruit from this, but we could get something a little bit darker. We'll see.
All right.
Let's see. So I'm going to pour it.
Okay.
Have you had Merlot before?
I have.
Do you remember the occasion?
Not especially, no. A friend of mine got me into red wine.
Ooh.
And it was at a time when I was still, I don't know if I like it or not. And he always used to quote something from a film, and I can't remember what the film was, but you must know the Merlot. I am not drinking the Merlot or something he said.
What film is
or
this
maybe
from?
He said it like, I think he said Merlot, or my friend jokingly said it Merlot, or he said Merlot in the film. That's annoying that I don't know, but I thought you would. I thought, surely if I just start to feed this across, you'd be like, I know it well, Stella, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Wine pun I know is one of my friends who's actually been on this, Rob Dan, who was like, oh, all of them are lols. And I was like, it's never left me. And now I just want to kill myself.
Fair.
On that note, the first thing we do with wine is we look to have a look at, how dark it is, what we're going to expect out of this one. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Because it's quite dark for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I cannot see anything through that.
Probably the longest I've looked at a glass of red wine without drinking it in my life. So I'm like, I agree, it's pretty dark.
After 11 episodes of this, no one has ever said that, but it's so true.
It's like, look at this. Yeah. I would have drank it already.
Okay, but
yeah,
for me,
I agree. You can't see through it. That's my expert eye. That's pretty dark.
Correct. Which for me means that the winemaker, knowing that this is a Merlot-led blend, you're like, shut up, Steph.
No.
They really extracted the most they could possibly extract out of the skins, and you do that by sometimes you can leave the grape on the vine for a little bit longer, ripen it a little bit, but especially in the winery, you're punching down the skins back into the liquid.
Oh, okay.
So you're macerating it all together, so all of that good tannin and anthocyanins come out of the skin.
Okay. What?
Yeah, right. I'm not going to say that word again in case I mess it up.
Okay.
But it's a thing.
I'm glad you back yourself, Steph, because I reckon you got it right and you know what you're talking about.
There's qualifications in the wine world, and I have a few.
It sounded good.
It's fine. It's allowed.
There's emphasis in the wine. Yeah, no, that's right.
Not repeating the word, it's fine. Okay, and now we can smell it and see what we're getting.
Oh, I've got to swirl it, haven't I?
You don't have to.
Swirly swirl.
It does smell delicious, though.
Now, I have to tell you, I did unfortunately get COVID at the end of Edinburgh.
Okay.
So it was August, so I don't have it now, so don't worry.
Yeah.
But one of the things it did was knock out my sense of smell and taste a little bit.
Are you still feeling it?
I mean, I think it's coming back, but I still get a sense that it's not what it was. So even as I...
Oh, that's so interesting.
Even as I give this a whiff, let me see if I can... I mean, I can smell it.
Good.
But I wonder, had we got round to doing this before Edinburgh, would it have been like...
This is a really
it's
a scary disease to have for anyone over a certain age, but also if you're working in the wine industry and your job is to buy wines and stuff and to smell and to understand what you're doing. Yeah, it's a cheeky little disease.
And if you're like a perfume noser is the term, I think, who goes around going, I'm perfect. Yeah, it is. It is.
We never really think about that, but there are more important things. But it does affect people's jobs as well.
How strongly are you getting it?
Do you know what? For a red wine, it's not the strongest, but it's still quite perfumed almost.
Thank God, because I'm really hauling up my nose at this point, and I'm like, have I still got COVID?
No, you're good.
Subtle, I'd say.
Do you know what you're smelling, though? What any notes come to mind? I'll tell you if you're wrong or right.
I mean, I reckon, and I'm not an expert, but I reckon that's a red wine.
Good. Nailed it. A star.
I think that's what I'm smelling, Steph.
Okay, to me, there is a little bit of red fruit. You've got your cherry. Mm-hmm. You've almost got maybe a black cherry because it's so kind of ripe and sweet smelling.
I'm gonna have to swirl it again.
Yeah, so this is quite a ripe Merlot. I'm guessing from the year. It sounds so wanky. There was a lot of sunshine and stuff because the Merlot has kind of really come into it. So it's very jammy. It's very fruity.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm such a douche. Call me out.
No. Hey, this is for wine lovers, right? Otherwise, every wine would just be a wine. So you've got the expert nostril on this.
Yes. So. Because it is jammy. It's lovely. There's also a bit of spice, though. Can you feel like a little bit of a tingling on your sinuses?
Maybe. But that might just be because I am giving it the hardest, the hardest inhale ever to really try and smell this thing. Nice. So yeah, there's a sensation I'm getting, a tickle.
Good. I think there's a little bit of oak in this as well. We can taste it now. Are you ready?
Can we?
Let's cheers first.
Oh, hear the ring on that.
I know. I love it. Quite powerful.
That's nice.
Yeah, I was expecting it to be a lot jammier, but the smell is there. It's a lot more red cherry, a little bit more lighthearted, but there's a lot of tannins there. You can definitely feel some oak influence. It's a fun wine.
Yeah, I've realised the only time I ever drink wine like this is out of tasting.
Yeah.
Because it's like...
This is like half a tasting, half a chat.
Like an exam. Like, what are you getting? Drunk.
Do you know why? Well, that's the point. That's good. That's oh God. I've just clocked 15% alcohol. So
excellent.
Just to let you know.
It's not as sweet as I thought with all the fruit talk.
That's what I thought. It just smells so beautifully jammy.
So I may have mentioned this before, Steph. I've spent a bit of time in New Zealand.
You didn't mention that.
Did I not? I forget who I tell what. So I end up repeating myself to people all the time. And they're like, you told me that like 50 times. And then I meet people and they're like, no, you've not. Okay. So, yes, I lived in New Zealand for about 5 years. Okay. And while I was out there, I went to a number of wineries and I quite became fond of a New Zealand Pinot Noir.
Oh, beautiful, yeah.
And I find them to be just enough sweetness that they're not sweet like a dessert wine sweet, but that's sort of like a level of sweet that I like. This tastes as French as I thought it would, to what little I know. But that's okay because I fully intend on drinking all of it, because that's the other thing. You can take the girl out of Coventry, but you can't take the cob out of the girl. So it doesn't matter if it tasted like bleach. I've been like, Steph, I've committed to this. By God.
This is to me like a very traditional red wine. Like if you like your red wines with a lot of structure, with a lot of cherry flavour, then this is going to tickle your pickle. And the smell is just like an added bonus because it is really, really beautiful on the nose. But I was going to ask you as well, because you mentioned Coventry and that you're talking about your heritage in your sets.
Yeah.
You are half Sri Lankan, half British, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so much like a winemaker would, I always have to squeeze these things.
I love it. Yeah. Talk about the blend.
Yes, exactly. They blend their wines, and especially for Bordeaux, it's very difficult to get it right sometimes because Merlot might be killed off by the frost. It's very early ripening, so there's a problem there. And then sometimes it's not hot enough throughout the year to ripen the Cabernet Franc that they put in this blend. So it's Merlot Cabernet Franc blend. Franc, not Sauvignon.
What's Franc?
It's spelt Franc, Franc. It's a different grape variety, basically. You are two grape varieties that have been blended.
I am, yes.
Into a Bordeaux.
Yep.
How does that come out in your comedy?
How does it come out in my comedy? Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? So my mum's from Yorkshire.
Okay.
And she moved to Coventry with her family when she was only about 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And Dad's from Sri Lanka. I'd say, if we're talking in wine terms, there's the fiery... rage-fueled grape from Yorkshire, and the more mellow note maybe from Sri Lanka. You know, they're very Buddhist out that way.
I guess so.
But equally, they both have their moments of flightiness, and then it's just managing all of that into the Molotov cocktail that I became.
So you're saying you're a blend of two extremes, basically?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'd say so. My dad used to box. Mum never competed, but I reckon she could take a few.
Knock someone out. I want to unpack that a little bit because I feel like that happens with my parents a lot as well. Like my dad is the jovial clown and my mum is like the Polish kind of cold organised woman. So my dad is Italian, my mum's Polish.
See, I didn't know that. I knew Aratoni sounded Italian, and I think we talked about that before. Maybe you did tell me. Actually.
And that's why I connect with the guys from B Comedy a lot, because they're Italian, and I kind of get the vibe of, you know, who they are as people, because I grew up with an Italian man and they're all annoying. So I know exactly how to handle them in that situation.
So if your mum's Polish, and you say more, what, reserved?
Yeah, she's a little bit. And I think I'm both. And it's weird. Sometimes on stage, I feel a little bit more reserved. But like beforehand, chatting with the comics and stuff, I'm like wanting to be in every conversation. Like, how do you express who you truly are on stage? It's such a big question, isn't it?
It is. I think that is the hardest part of comedy. And it's known as finding your voice. And it is difficult because when you start out, you don't really know what you're doing, whether you did a comedy course or read a book or just jumped up at an open mic in New Zealand because you were on the other side of the planet and none of your friends and family would ever see it. Or however you found your way there, you kind of do what you think. Yeah. And a lot of it comes from watching people you like and, I think you're meant to do it like this.
Just if you're watching, and I've actually edited this together, the camera has fucked up on us multiple times.
It really has.
We just got to roll with the punches sometimes.
We occasionally get heckled by a
and you're like, no!
The camera just died.
Oh, well, cheers, babes.
Hey, we are going to get through this. One failing technology alone.
Because we're professionals and nothing will hold us back.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. Because we're stand-up comedians. We deal with worse than this on the reg.
Been to bad gigs where the lights fail, where the mic fails, where the audience fail, and where we fail.
I've learned never to blame the audience, but in my mind I'm just like that one guy who was asleep at the front, like, come on mate, have a Red Bull.
Yeah, every now and then, sometimes it's an audience.
God damn you. Nah, okay, I'm done with it. Battery exhausted. Jesus.
It worked so hard. Well, look, audio clips.
Audio clips all the way. Can do people again. For example, when I was doing Lee Hudson in the first series, I was like, so you're kind of a white wine because you don't really do sexual or political stuff. And he's like, well, I'm writing sexual and political stuff. And I'm like, I might do you next year then.
Yeah.
Different wine. Or we can actually get a nice Pinot Noir from New Zealand for you.
That would be fun.
Exactly. And
I can even get one. I can bring one. It can be my round.
Oh, that would be really awesome.
It can be my round.
Oh, this would be more of a girlfriend's drinking wine session. All right. Okay. So now we don't have to worry about the camera cutting out anymore.
Do we need to clap?
We can cheers.
Let's give it a firm. That works just as well, doesn't it?
Shit, that's what we should have been doing.
All this time.
Okay, perfect. Right. Train of thought.
And someone's playing Maggie by Rod Stewart very loud right outside.
To be fair, it's a jam.
It is. I'm into it.
Are they playing it through a car or something?
I feel like there's somebody in a car outside and that's where it's coming from. And that's what really hurts.
It's like, move! Lights change. Yeah, because it wasn't like this the whole time.
No.
All jokes for me on stage are based in some element of the truth, but we extremify it so it ends up sounding funnier, I guess. Because exaggeration is one of our tools. And I guess putting the title of husband would work really well for some of your jokes.
I mean, I've since stopped saying that and I've gone back to boyfriend because I just sort of got over myself. I think what a lot of it is, and this picks up from where we were before, when you're starting out, you don't really know, so you experiment, you try all these different styles. Because you as a person off stage, you're complicated. But on stage, that's a lot to bring.
That's true.
So you kind of want to make it easy for the audience who are just meeting you for the first time to sort of streamline it and pick out the funniest you. And to keep it simple, because the you that's with your friends, that's having a laugh, you've got history, and these people don't know that. So it's how to sort of quickly get them to know this is who you're getting on stage.
I'm smiling manically because, when you're looking for the answer for something for a long time, you've got this one question in your head, who am I on stage? And why can't people get it? And what do I need to do? And someone finally answers that question for you, basically, I think a lot of people have told me to stop analysing it as much. And what you've just said is basically, you're meeting someone for the first time, just give them the most lighthearted part of you. It doesn't have to be the full you, it doesn't have to be the most authentic you, it doesn't have to be all of the layers, just be nice. Yeah.
Simplify. And also, what you find funny is really important. And if I find it funny because of this, and this, it's like, okay, let's rein it in and get it down to the core of what it is, and of who you are. And I would say this, a lot of my journey of figuring out who I am on stage was a lot of to stop denying things I didn't like about myself, because I was like, no, I think I'm fine. It's like, are you, Stella? Are you really? And that was a process of being like, no, and a lot of arguing. And then eventually being like, I think over time, you get older and you just go, wow, did I really say that? Okay, if I'm being honest with myself now, maybe I used to deny a lot of things, and now I'm like, okay, actually, yeah, I am a little bit. I can be a dick. I can be an asshole. Let's take that on stage. And I think that changed things a lot for me.
Is there an element of not caring as well? Like, even if someone does judge you? Because I'm finding this in the dating world specifically, because I'm recently dating again. And I've met other people as well. One guy I'm dating has said specifically, I am someone who will put everything out there, and if someone likes that, then I'm golden, because then they're attracted to that specific thing. Whereas I'm not someone that I'm like quite reserved, probably from my Polish side.
Yeah.
But I'm learning to kind of like show everyone all of the bad elements of myself as well, so that even if they can handle that from the off, then I know that they can be a partner for a longer period of time.
Okay.
Is that comedy?
That sounds a lot like that thing. If you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best.
But isn't that comedy though?
I mean, yes. I think I had a lot more fun on stage when I started talking more about the things that I used to think I couldn't tell anyone that. And a lot of that was putting aside pride. And now I'm like, oh, whatever. Like, there's still probably one or two things where I'm like, I don't know about this. But the only way to find out is to do it. And then to start. And then I've found working with someone has really helped. And having someone to call you out on your bullshit.
That's the dream. What do you mean working with someone? Like a comedy director or whatever?
Yeah, that kind of thing. Having another pair of eyes to question. Because comedy, I didn't do a comedy course to start with, and I know a lot of people do. And I think if that's what helps you get up on stage initially, like, oh, here's a microphone and talk about this, talk about that, gets you started. But then you're kind of off on your own, unless you stick with like a writing buddy or people like that. So I started on my own, really. And then a lot of it was just trying to figure out as much of it myself as I could. And I met a couple of people along the way. I worked with a couple of people. And then finding someone who gets you, who really knows what you're trying to do. And then having someone who will question you and go, what's this you're talking about? Why are you talking about? Yeah, but why? But what's really happening here? And well, it's obviously this. Is it? And then getting to the bottom of that, and then suddenly I was like, no, I don't think I do anything wrong here. And then suddenly it's like, yeah, you do. And then that really helped. So I think that could, but it is interesting. You are quite reserved. And
I can be, yeah.
I wonder why. Let's get into that, shall we, Steph?
What do you mean on stage or off stage?
Right now, both
things. It's so interesting because there's a famous thing where people, when they watch their videos back from stand-up or anything, think, oh, I was so emotional at that point, and actually the camera shows maybe 20% of emotion. You're just like, oh, I felt so much, but it wasn't coming across. That's how I feel all the time. I feel that there's so much feeling involved, but it's the dead Polish eyes that are just like not showing anything.
You're not allowing yourself.
Maybe.
But why?
But
why, Steph? Let's get into it. Why? What are you afraid of?
It's always that. I love this conversation. Can I just say this is the most Bordeaux red wine conversation? Let's have a Bordeaux and talk deep, okay? Because that's how this feels.
Yeah, let's go for it.
I feel like there's always an element like when your parents raise you and stuff to be intelligent and forthright, and I was never raised as like a girly girl or anything, or any kind of expression of that, so I don't have that side of me. It's very matter of fact, and it's quite cold. It's probably because that's how my mum was, and that's what I grew up with. But do you feel like because you're quite emotional on stage, but I think you're less so face to face. It's not like an overwhelming sense of emotion or anything. So it feels like you're just expressing a little bit more out of it, which is what I'd quite like to do eventually.
So I think when I first started, I didn't have any self-awareness. Oh. I was self-oblivious.
That's perfect. That's what you want.
You think. So this again comes back to the cluelessness of when I started. So I didn't really know what I was doing. I went to the club in Auckland and I watched a few like rookie nights. I was like, hey, can I put my name down? I'll come back. And then I just Googled furiously, bought a book, read it. How do you even do stand-up? And I was like, all right, I'm just going to write down what I think I know and do it. And so much of that is done interiorly. Like, here's what I think I should be doing. Yeah. And then videoing helps because then you get to watch and see what you do. But even then, it's hard to watch yourself initially. And then you're still doing what you think you're supposed to do. And that person, compared to the you that's having fun with your friends and all the rest of it, they're poles apart and it takes a long time to get there. And I think, and I'm going to say this as well, I think especially for girls, I think we're always, you should behave in a certain way and da-da-da-da. For a lot of us. So maybe there was a resistance to, don't do that. Whereas actually a lot of it's trial and error. Go to the extremes. Whatever it is you really, really think about that you really want to talk about. You'll bomb a little on the way, but who doesn't like that?
That's
Otherwise, you'll always play it safe.
Yeah.
And you'll never know what your voice is until you really experiment.
Have you ever thought about comedy directing?
Yes. But I think I would be happy to help someone, and I've worked with not officially directing, but I've done a few bits and pieces. Somebody did ask me once and they offered me money to do it, and I said I won't take any money for it because I have quite a thing about that, because I think what qualifies you to sort of direct or to do this, that and the other, but I would help, absolutely.
And that experience might then qualify you eventually.
Yeah, and I have to say there's something to be said about helping others really helps you.
Yeah.
Not in a sort of, oh my God, I'm helping people. But when you start telling people, oh, you're struggling with that, if you do this, this and this, and then there's a bit of, well, why aren't you doing that, Stella? Like, you can talk a good game. So there's benefits in that. And I've always found, like, if somebody comes to me with material, hey, I'm working on this thing, I liken it to when somebody's worked on a jigsaw puzzle. And you're like, you've missed a bit here.
Because they've been looking at it for so long, they can't see the bigger picture. Yeah.
Exactly. So, like, when someone brings you that, and that's really helpful, but when you're doing that for yourself, it's quite hard because you're the one who's been staring at it for all this time. And that's when another pair of eyes come in. And I think it's being open to somebody saying, okay, what do you think about this? What about yourself? Because I'm curious now. Why are you reserved, Steph? What's going on?
I've not fully unpacked it because I've always thought, I don't know, maybe I come across, when you judge other people for X, Y, and Z, it's in the exact place that you judge yourself.
Yes.
And other people have found me a bit too much in their life, right? Which is weird, but they're very shy and reserved themselves. So they're like judging themselves for not coming out. And that's where I that's where they judge me. Whereas maybe both me and you are just like trying not to be as reserved in ourselves. So we would pick that up. If that means
potentially. Anything. But then who are the people who were telling you this?
Well, you asking me, I'm just like, oh, Stella, are you thinking about you yourself being shy and reserved for something?
Well, I definitely was, but I'm older than you. And I think at your age, I probably was a little bit more. But it depends. It depends who you are in different circumstances. So drunk with friends, I'm a very different Stella to the Stella who was sitting at a desk at work.
See, I'm not. That's my biggest downfall and my biggest strength is I'm quite consistent. You'd probably get this, Steph, at my office in the wine industry place I work, or chatting to comics before a gig or whatever. The only place I feel slightly different is freaking on stage, and it's jarring the shit out of me because I'm like, why can I do this everywhere else, but I can't do it the one place that I want to be my most authentic self?
It might be the material that you're picking. It might be just your approach, and how much of yourself are you willing to reveal?
It's something about that spotlight, man. That's something about. But then when I present PowerPoint at work, I'm okay. I'm myself. I'm like making little quips. I think I'm someone who will make a joke in the place where you're not meant to make a joke, and yet here I am as a stand-up comedian having to make jokes in exactly the place where you're meant to make a joke, and that's where it fucks me up. I'm like, oh god, the pressure. Oh, I can't do it.
Interesting, because I think I've mostly seen you MC.
Yeah, that's where it's okay.
I don't know that I've seen you just do a set.
Yeah.
I think I've only ever seen you MC, so I don't even really know what your material's like.
There's a lot of female forward stuff, and I actually don't talk about a lot of feminine issues in my day-to-day.
Okay.
I think about them all the time, and I'll make an offhand cuff comment, off-the-cuff comment. Wow, merging a lot of things there. But it's not something like I'll outrightly outline in any given day. So maybe it feels like I'm climbing the mountain of stuff that I want to talk about, but I can't tackle it just yet. I don't know.
Are you in your 20s?
Late. I'm almost 30 in January.
At your age, I had no idea.
I feel like I'm at the gate.
So did I.
How long does it take, Stella? Because I can't stand it anymore.
It's pretty brutal. I think it was Jerry Seinfeld who said, enjoy the journey. And I'm like, well, that sounds awesome, Jerry, but I hated the journey. Because I spent the entire journey going, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
We're oddly similar in a lot of ways.
I was crazy impatient. I was like, okay, I've heard that it takes 10 years to find your voice. That's bullshit. I'm going to find a shortcut, and I'm going to do it in 18 months, God damn it. Maybe they didn't just work as hard as me, or maybe they weren't as determined as me. Maybe everyone was getting drunk and taking drugs. That's
what this podcast is for, is try and get as much information from different sources and just see.
I think a lot of it starts with, what are the subjects you talk about a lot? Yeah. What are the ones you think about a lot?
In real life?
Both, but then with stand-up. So, because one feeds into the other, right? There's something you think about a lot, you'll find something funny in it, and then there will be, like when I first started, it was a hell of a pick and mix. It was all over the place. Of like, oh, that's funny, and then I'd have like a joke that was kind of surreal, and then one that's very observational, and then maybe something that was a little bit political, and it was very scattershot, but it probably had that through line of aggression.
That's so interesting.
that is sort of consistent, because I always I did like the bigness of performance, and maybe that's because I felt at work. So most of the day jobs I have were desk based, and I spent a lot of time
in IT.
Yes, a lot of time in technical support, and the difference I felt being able to, because I always felt a certain way in the office of like, okay, I'm at work now, I have to behave a certain way. Blah, and then the me that's driving home screaming at the windscreen in traffic, and there was obviously a lot bubbling under the surface. So when it came to the stage, I was like, I get to have fun now. The other part of that was a while after I started doing stand-up, I did acting classes, and then they really encouraged you to not be that button-down person that's and they pushed you to very extremes, and that was fun. Because I thought, wow, we really do become quite subdued in a lot of circumstances. So it became a place to play, but then also I didn't want to be insane on stage. Like I didn't want people to be, I think she's having a meltdown. Maybe we should just leave quietly and hope she doesn't notice. So there was a lot of that.
I've been reading a book called The Chimp Paradox recently.
I think I've heard of it.
Have you heard of it? It's a good book, and I think I'm trying to, every time I read a new self-help book, I kind of map stand-up comedy onto it because I'm clearly insane. And that's fine, but
we all are, Steph. That's why we do stand-up.
We all do, yeah.
Normal adjusted people don't need to go on stage and go, look at me, look at me.
Did you ever get that moment where you haven't done stand-up for a while, maybe after lockdown, and you pick up a microphone and you go, what the fuck am I doing right now? What is going on?
The times when I would have that feeling would be if it was a big gig. Because that feeling of doing a gig for the first time for a new promoter or in a new venue or something.
Out of body.
Is always, and there's moments backstage when I would go, why am I doing this? No, really, like, why am I doing this? I could be getting arrested on Streatham High Street. There's this timely siren that goes past. But then there's that moment when you come out, you get to the mic and you get the first laugh and you go, that's why I do it.
I'm in this weird position where I've done open mic so long and used to that format that when I actually get a normal audience that are actually there to enjoy, and for example, if they laugh a little bit too long, if I get an applause break, I really don't know what to do because it was so rare on the open mic that you get any kind of proper engagement.
Stay in the bit or tag it.
Yeah.
So it depends on what it is you've just said and what's getting the applause.
Okay.
That's just, I think, there's an interview, I think it's called Talking Funny on YouTube, and it's like Chris Rock, Louis C.K., Ricky Gervais and Jerry Seinfeld. Yeah. Oh, sure. And, hold on, I won't talk for this bit. Go for it. Okay. Oh, yeah, everyone knows what's happening.
If we had headphones, which we can do next time, plugged in, just like listening to that sound.
There we go. And in that, I think it's Louis C.K. says that he's talking about what to do in those moments, and Jerry was the one who said to him, stay in the bit. So if you're angry, stay angry. If you're like, or there's an opportunity to tag it, maybe squeeze another laugh. But you're right, you don't get many
delivering the
breaks.
punchline essentially, and you're kind of not freezing or whatever, but you're sort of like, if you're angry, like, or if you're like indignant, like, right, and you're kind of like knuckling down on the emotion that you expressed in that punchline, I guess.
It depends on the bit. So without seeing it, I can't know, and I can only say what I would do because obviously lots of comics have different styles. But it could even be a facial, it could be a physical. You know, it could be a right moment, or it could be while they're clapping, is there an opportunity to squeeze another laugh out of this? A tag might come to you in that moment because there's nothing more delicious. You're like, they're loving this. I'm onto something here. There's got to be another punchline where you could tag it and again and again. Who knows? You might get a run. So I think those moments, it's good just to, and that's one of the things I love about stand-up. I think I never got bored doing stand-up, whereas I got bored in every other job I had.
That's so interesting.
But when you're on stage, because you just don't know, like if you've got a bit that always goes well and then you do it and it doesn't, you're like, okay. Or suddenly a bit that doesn't normally goes well catches fire and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And I like that. I love the alertness of it and how alive it is. So without knowing the bits, I don't know. But I definitely think you're right. You won't get many applause breaks in an open mic with other dead-eyed comics who are looking at their own notes. But in a real crowd, what fun to be had. You've got options. So don't be so surprised when they happen, I would say.
That's true. It's so weird. Like, that's your one job as a comic, to kind of like entertain people enough that they're engaged enough to spread some kind of vibe throughout the venue, if that's applause or laughter, whatever that is. And yet I can't actually perform that job because I'm not experienced enough in that understanding.
No, you can do it. It's just you're learning. And that's the other thing. I think part of the 10-year finding the voice thing, which sounds insane, is a lot of it is road miles. Yeah. Because by then you will have done that many gigs. And it's the old Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off. They're muscles you're building. So every gig, something will happen in the room. Nice 80s film reference there, Stella. Really show your age.
But I appreciate it. That was good.
but it does, because you suddenly you will have been in so many different rooms and played to so many different crowds and I've had this many a time, something happens in the room and then on the way home you're like, I should have said this, you bastard. So then it suddenly ends up on the chalkboard in the back of your brain of, right, if that happens again, I'll use that. Yeah. And I think that is a big part of the 10-year finding the voice thing.
Definitely.
As annoying as it is, as much as we'd all love to be a comedy genius in 6 months, you can't cheat experience. So how long have you been doing stand-up?
3 years.
You're still pretty new. And I hope that doesn't come across patronising.
No, it doesn't. It makes me feel relieved more so.
But on the thing of finding a voice and stuff, I had the exact same frustrations. And what I think is good is that emceeing is nice because it gives you a chance to not only do material, but also to do a bit of crowd work. And you are in the building muscles stage now. Sorry, I talk in muscles. That's just, I like it. We could talk about grapes. You are stepping on grapes in a bucket right now.
So I am a young vine right now. Okay? I haven't established my roots. I'm growing vigorously in all different directions. It's a little bit weird. It's very herbaceous. But I need to just make
and from
sure,
time to time, there'll be a frost.
There will be a frost.
And you will have to manage that frost.
That was very well done, Stella.
I'm doing the best I can based on a film I think I saw years ago where they was like, there's a frost, and they had to like start trying to save the grapes. Yeah.
Bordeaux is a very, very traditional style, right? Very recently, there's so many laws governing what Bordeaux can do. Like what is in this glass is a very specific blend. It has to be Merlot. It has to be something else.
Okay.
Recently, within the last year, I think Bordeaux has allowed 6 new grape varietals to be grown in the region, which is kind of unheard of for France. So what we were talking about, like not caring and like giving over to change, France has started doing because of climate change specifically. So like all of these grapes just not growing as well. So they've gone, okay, let's refresh the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So I would like to just give a big shout out to France for just like starting that, because as the most traditional wine growing region, it's the best thing they could have done for themselves, because otherwise the wine is just going to keep getting more and more alcoholic. Mm-hmm. This one itself is 15%, so we can kind of see it's just nudging up and up. But yeah, they're doing the right thing. And I being able to be flexible is the right way to go.
100%. They've increased the alcohol content. I don't think they'll get many complaints from the consumer.
Correct. But the taste is slightly getting altered. But you're right. The kind of person that would drink Bordeaux wouldn't really care.
I think change is inevitable in a way, because it's like you can dig your heels in hard if you want, but whether we like it or not, the world is changing. And you said due to climate, they've had to change. So it wasn't so much that they were like, hey, we think Bordeaux is doing sweet, why don't we mix it up a bit? It was like, hey, the planet's dying. We need to adjust our grape game. But I'm glad that they embraced it and that they didn't sort of dig in and be like, no, we're going to find a way, even if it means pumping sewage into the rivers. We're going to stick with the traditional grape because we can never change and we can never adapt.
But France has famously always done that. Like, you know, there's so many rigid laws based on traditions of selling such beautiful wine, and they've had to start shaking it up. And isn't that true for the human body? As we age, we have to start shaking it up as well. I mean, even as a comedic voice, you've got to start.
I think that's so true, though, because it's like if you never change, you never learn. It's like if you're going to stick with the same knowledge you had at the age, you're like, this is it. I'm going to draw a line in the sand. I'm not going to learn anything new. I'm not going to try anything new. I'm not going to experiment, and I'm not going to grow. Well, all right, but then you're going to get left behind by all the other grapes that are like, well, we're doing just fine, so you stick there, Grandpa. And
that's nothing to do, that's not taking away from your experiences or the traditions that you had. You've got all of those banked. They're like in your muscle memory, in your autopilot. And now you can give a sprinkle of that newer, different grape variety for Bordeaux, as an example, or a different technique as us as comedians, and have a bit more fun with it. Just remind yourself of why you got into the game in the first place, which was for Bordeaux to make exquisite wine and for us to make an audience laugh.
100%. I think tradition is awesome, but so is fusion.
Oh, I mean, we are two people that could talk about that, being Polish, Italian, being British, Sri Lankan. Right?
There you go.
It's the best kind.
Sometimes you just got to mix it up and see what happens.
That's it. But you know that Bordeaux especially ages really well in the bottle. Okay? It does.
I don't like where this is going already.
This has nothing to do with age. And basically the wine inside the bottle changes over time. Okay, so this one is the tannins will soften as well, so it's going to feel a little bit more chocolatey later on. It's going to be absolutely beautiful.
I will say this, the more I've drank it, the more I've liked it.
Yeah, it's airing out a little bit, which is famously what red wine does, especially when it's this tannic.
I mean, I think
it's softening nicely, isn't it?
Coats your tongue after a while, and then because before this, I'd been drinking tea, and it's daytime, everybody. And I think over time now, I'm like, this is going down a lot easier. We're halfway through.
You can feel the cherry coming out now. This is like cherry dark chocolate kind of vibe. Over time, those tannins will soften in the bottle, much like it kind of has in the glass now. So the wine is changing. How do you see your comedy changing in the next few years?
Interesting.
Yes.
So I think you as a person changes roughly every 7 years anyway.
Interesting.
Because you go through phases. So in my 20s, who was I? Where was I? I was living in New Zealand in a flat share with friends. We threw a couple of house parties. We did that kind of thing. Then I moved home to the UK, and then it was in a job, sort of early 30s, and lots of people I knew were getting married. So a lot of my material would have been like, weddings, all my friends are getting married. And I think that sort of, it's a common progression of who you are at the age you are. So the next thing that happened is after 7 weddings in a year, or whatever it was, then, friends are having babies. Oh, my friends are having babies. I don't want to have babies. And then the next phase comes in, mid to late 30s. FYI, your hormones go insane. So, and you might, even though you might think, I don't know how you feel about having kids now, but if you're like, I don't want kids, and then suddenly like mid to late 30s, your body will be like, maybe you do.
That's interesting.
And hormonally, everything was going crazy. And I had a lot of fun with material on that.
That is fun. That's a big topic.
So I think who I will be as an aging wine, I think a fine wine, where you are age-wise and what's happening in the world, because there's who you are, the age you are, what you're doing, and what's going on in the world, all combined. So coming out of the pandemic and then everything that's going on now, plus whatever age I am, whatever I'm into. So if it's like, no to kids, no to getting married, but now suddenly I've got this insane hobby I'm into, whatever. So I don't know, but I think the other thing to that is like the aggression and everything. Will there be a mellowing? Will I suddenly be less energetic, or will I have a midlife crisis and be even more? I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think I don't want to be the kind of act that keeps the same material for 10 years. I want to sort of mold, and I hope this is helpful for you to sort of think about and look at where you are now, what situation, even maybe you've got flatmates. I've been living with my fella for a while now, so I don't do, when your flatmates, or like, I don't do material about Tinder because I'm not on it, So your circumstances will feed into that as well.
So that was Stella Graham on the Comedy Wine List podcast. Do follow us on Instagram at the Comedy Wine List. You can also follow Stella on Insta and Twitter at Stella Graham. Also hit up stellagraham.com if you want her YouTube, Facebook, etc. That conversation over a characterful Bordeaux kind of took me places, Sometimes you really connect with people, and the wine helped a little bit, but it's nice to be inspired by someone that helps motivate you. I think the one bit of advice that really shone for me was the idea that when I first walk on stage, the audience is meeting me for the first time. I don't need to be everything to everyone. I don't need to show, I've got a feminist side, I've got this kind of side, I'm this character, I can be stressful in this situation. Like, I don't have to do all of those things in the first 10 seconds. They're just getting to know me, and that's okay. And that's very much what happened with our conversation. We went to new depths, but later on in our set, so to speak, or in our conversation, and you get a sense that the wine also did the same thing. It opened up over time, it got some air, it developed lovely notes of chocolate and cherry, and it just started balancing out wonderfully. So Bordeaux, have some. Christmas is coming up, it's the perfect wine for that kind of thing. It opens up over time, it opens conversations up over time, and we make new memories. So thank you for listening to the Comedy Wine List podcast. Cheers, and we'll see you for the next episode.